Gary, all right, you guys, Dave Man Max 6, and we're back with the doc. The doc was unavailable for a little bit, and now he's back in town, so we're going to resume the show, you guys, and I know you've been really excited, sending me all kinds of questions. We really appreciate it, and thanking us for doing the show, and you want us to keep doing it, getting questions from all over the world. Dr. Rand, how are you?
Getting better, thank you.
All right, it's good to have you back, my friend. All right, so we're going to get started right away with the first questions. I am currently on a test and deball cycle, and they are working out great. But my issue is that before I started using about a year ago, I'm 29 years old now, for competition purposes, I was already at a high libido kind of guy, but now it's through the roof. That sounds like a good problem. My girlfriend has noticed, but her libido has gone down, and although she says weight gain and some stress has contributed, I'm still wanting her more and more, and I have no idea how to bring it up without turning her off or starting an argument, because I'm constantly bringing it up. I've told her that with or without steroids, I've always found it to be very attractive, no matter what, even if she gained weight. But basically the question is, if there's anything I can do to help her, because I have all this horniness and we're nowhere to put it. What could I do?
Anything to help her?
I help her or him, I guess. I don't know.
Talk her into letting him have another girlfriend or something. I'm not sure the question. You know, does he want her to be rescued or something to tone his libido down? How do you read that question?
Yeah, I think what he would want, if I'm putting him myself in his shoe, would be to increase hers.
Gotcha. Right. What can he do for her? Well, the first thing, you know, he said he's 29 years old.
Yeah, he was 29. I think he's 30 now.
That's pretty early to, well, it doesn't matter about,
yeah.
He's doing this now. So
right.
He's on, not necessarily testosterone replacement therapy, but testosterone and Dianabol.
Right.
That should increase your libido. And, you know, realistically, she's not going to be able to keep up with him for what would be normal, whatever normal means, reasons.
Right.
You know, he's on something that's increasing his libido considerably.
Right.
If, however, she doesn't have a libido, as opposed to not being able to keep up, I guess is the point of what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Then I would look into her testosterone levels and see if that's indeed the problem. It usually is. The expression I wear out all the time is if you see a hoof print, look for a horse before you look for a zebra. And if this is new onset, something unusual, then that would make sense. Get some labs done, test or get an assay of not only the testosterone total, but the testosterone free. Because what I see often is, particularly as women age, the testosterone total will be within the normal reference interval, but the free portion, which is where the rubber meets the pavement, is really low or even immeasurable, sometimes below 0.2, and that could be the problem. There isn't a whole lot that I'm aware of that will increase the free testosterone in a female, although in general, anything that will bring down the sex hormone binding globulin, which is what binds up testosterone, keeps it from being available for use, will do that, and that's usually helped by making sure she has a high protein diet. Stinging nettle is another supplement that can help raise your free testosterone. And again, I don't know what her age is, if this is appropriate to even look into. I mean, if she's 22, it'd be rare.
Right.
But hey, you can always look into the issue, and you'll find out one way or the other if low T is an issue. And it does happen more frequently than I would expect at a younger age, just because stress. Stress tends to drive the hormone levels down, and you say, oh, well, then she doesn't need replacement. She just needs to reduce her stress. Well, I don't know where he's writing from, but in this town, I mean, I get a lot of laughs when someone's prematurely considering testosterone replacement therapy. They do have low numbers, but I say, well, you just have to reduce your stress. Well, this is LA, Hollywood, life in general. My mom and dad, or my dad, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, like so many, walked to school uphill both ways, 20 miles in the snow, and lived in a shoebox and ate dirt. But, you know, at 80 years old now, he says, you know, that we actually have it harder than he did in terms of stress is what I'm getting at.
Right, right.
So how do you escape that? Practically speaking, unless you're willing to move to Bali and, I don't know, join in with the monks, it's not a practical solution. So even if she's young, it'd be, again, at least worth looking into to see if she could be helped out. And yeah, you bring up an interesting problem that happens with TRT. You know, not that what he's doing is not legitimate. I don't want to put that word on, but, you know, medically approved bioidentical hormone replacement therapy will change someone's life. They're going to feel, instead of like they're 50, like they did when they were 20 again. And one of the things I say, you know, half for the smile, but half very seriously, is that, you know, you're going to go home to your significant other feeling like you did when you were 20. And, you know, you're going to say, hey, honey, let's go dancing. And she's going to, or he's going to look at you, you know, with clicker in hand saying, what do you mean? This is American Idol night. What are you doing?
Is that a common problem? Do you hear that quite often with some of your patients?
I had a couple come in here and...
you got to get them off this thing.
Yeah, this woman came in and she said, her first words out of her mouth were, if you don't do something with him, I'm going to divorce him.
Oh,
and of course I'm thinking, oh, dude, if that's the way she's going to speak about this, you might want to consider divorce before you go any further.
Wow.
But suffice to say, we got him on replacement therapy, and 3 months later for the follow-up, it was almost the exact same words. I said, well, how you doing? She says, if you don't do something about him, I'm going to divorce him. And I'm, you know, my heart rate starts to go up. And this is my first failure, you know, and this therapy works. I'm not doing anything. I'm just, I'm helping. And I've never heard of this not working. And I said, well, what's the problem? She says, he won't leave me alone. You know, so that was when this was ages ago, but that's when the light went off. Hey, man, I need to warn people about this because it happens both ways. Physiologically, I will say that women, because of the anatomy, well, in general, I don't think they can keep up physically with men just because of the way they're built. And I don't mean that in any
derogatory,
misogynist way or anything. It's just it's the anatomy, or maybe it's just the attitude too. I mean, a guy will continue, pardon me, but you know, until he's bleeding, and you know, so to speak, you know, the skin's worn off. I don't mean to be so graphic, but you know, where a female will say, "Hey, you know, this is ridiculous." But no, in all seriousness, I mean, there's a difference between the anatomy that, because I don't buy into the whole thing about, you know, guys are always hornier than girls. I've seen it both ways in my practice, so I don't think that's the issue. But again, he doesn't define really in detail what's going on here, but I hope I gave you at least a general answer. Well,
let me segue into another question that I got actually just this morning, so I added to the list of questions that I sent you. When it comes to women, do you actually have women coming to see you for hormone replacement therapy? Does that happen?
I used to have more female patients than male patients until probably the last year.
Really?
Absolutely. Why not? Testosterone...
I don't know. We just assume all the time that it's only guys.
Well, because of people thinking that testosterone's for men and estrogen's for women.
Yeah.
And no, men and women share the same hormones. Just different ratios, obviously. Men definitely have a predominance of testosterone, whereas females have a predominance of estrogen, relatively speaking. Although, by the time, say, a man and a woman make it to, say, age 80, knock on wood, the female will have more testosterone in relative terms than a male, for sure, or often. And in absolute terms, she will have less estrogen than he will.
Wow.
As a man ages, he tends to make more and more estrogen from testosterone for reasons we don't understand why, but we know it happens.
Wow.
But anyway, the same, you know, libido, body composition, energy, sense of well-being, and joie de vivre, all are associated with testosterone, whether you're male or female. With females, it becomes a little bit more complicated is not the right word. It's not that complicated, but you have more factors because of the uterus and having to take care of that as they age, if they still have it, with progesterone and estrogen. And also, women tend to have symptoms associated with deficiency of estrogen, usually after they have symptoms of deficiency of testosterone. Hot flashes, night sweats, and eventually vaginal dryness, and the vaginal wall will start to break down, and sometimes even just walking can be painful, not just intercourse. And that usually happens, as I said, after you see symptoms of deficiency of testosterone, because it all starts with a cascade of hormones, beginning with cholesterol, and general categories goes to pregnenolone, DHEA, progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen. So by the time they get to those estrogen deficiency symptoms, they're probably running low on all the other precursors.
Very cool, very cool. So I'm glad you said that, because we've actually been getting more questions from women viewers, just so you know, not only all over the world, but the women has been interesting in your show. So
good. Don't be afraid to go to the doctor and
Please,
talk
lady.
to him or her about it, because it definitely makes a difference in both genders' lives.
Very cool. Thank you, Doc. Okay, Doc. So this one is concerning growth hormones. Can you ask the doc if GH overuse is what he thinks causes the huge stomach distension on bodybuilders that we're seeing now in bodybuilding contests?
In short, no, I don't think that's what's going on, because we know that bodybuilders have been using growth hormone for a long time. I don't want to name names for obvious reasons, but when you're using a lot of growth hormone, meaning in excess of the physiological level, other than replacement, it's super physiologic, things start to happen like flat bone growth. The long bones won't grow anymore because the growth plates have stopped working, but you'll start to see bodybuilders that have a gap between their teeth as those bones grow. Noses, ears, hands, feet, they'll all grow.
That'll come first?
I don't really know what comes first.
Oh.
I think it all happens together. Any flat bone can grow. I think it would be specific to the individual where you might notice it first, but the potential is there to grow anywhere. Growth hormone can make the organs grow too.
Because it's been used for that reason sometimes, you said, in the past,
well, rejuvenation of organs, as you age, your organs can shrink, and this can help the intestines, could, in this case to what you're referring, could potentially grow, but not to the extent that you would see what I see on the internet, pictures of.
So what is that then?
Well, it's fat for sure. I mean, what's happening is, and a guy named Jerry Brainham, who used to write for Iron Man, and very, very knowledgeable, great guy. He has not to compete with this at all, but he has a newsletter. It's an on-site. What is the hip way to say it? E-zine, applied metabolics that is going to go into this soon, I believe. He hasn't shared it with me yet, but I think his theory is, we'll find out, jiving with mine, that it's insulin. That's what's new. Okay, you've got growth hormone. It converts to insulin-like growth factor, but you add insulin to the mix, and you can get some omentum fat. In short, is what's happening. I also think that when you inject exogenous growth hormone, I know that your body's going to release somatostatin, because it's saying, hey, there's too much growth hormone, stop. So we've got not just a negative feedback loop, but we've got something that can counter the growth hormone, and somatostatin makes for a slowed GI, meaning the motility of the gut is going to be decreased considerably. So as unappealing as this is going to sound, it's not only fat, but it's also feces. And half of feces is bacteria. When things slow down, there's more food for the bacteria that's supposed to be there to feed. And it doesn't mean that somebody's going to be passing gas all the time, because if it slows down enough, and it's slowing the entire process, the small bowel, which is further up than the large bowel, obviously the colon, where you the feces eventually passes through, the gas that's formed there will be absorbed through the bloodstream and then expelled through the lungs before it even exits the body in terms of in the form of a fart. People who are saying, well, my gut's not that way because I don't pass gas all the time. That's not a good way to judge. in general, I found anytime guys are using more than 2 IUs a day, which for the age where it's appropriate for hormone replacement therapy, and this is really a loose guide because everyone's different, and paradoxically we need less as we age, but if you're using more than 2 IUs a day, you're probably going to have an IGF-1, which is what we use as a surrogate measure for GH, which is higher than normal. It's going to be super physiologic, and you might have some of these issues.
Okay.
Obviously, we're talking about bodybuilders using this. It's not for medically approved purposes. So yeah, you're going to see some of this with the dosages that are being used.
Gotcha.
Now, let me just add this too. But it's a sort of fun fact that might be helpful for bodybuilders. I've researched this for as long as I can remember, growth hormone use, because people are asking me about it all the time. And I've gotten the GH belly questions before too, and hopefully, Jerry's going to come up with a more detailed answer than I came up with. But first of all, growth hormone is illegal in this country anyway to prescribe for any one of but 7 conditions that the FDA lists, and they go so far as to say, as one of the conditions, they list Prader-Willi syndrome, HIV, but then they say not to be prescribed for anti-aging, cosmetic, or bodybuilding purposes.
Oh, wow.
So, just to air that out, and a lot of doctors don't even know that, but just, I guess, to educate. But, so, the gist of what I wanted to add there, aside from the tangents, is that the studies I have found show that men and women can use up to 6 IUs of growth hormone per day. I think I mentioned earlier that paradoxically you need less as you grow older. So 6 IUs may not go very far for a 20-year-old who's in need of replacement therapy. But the studies show that up to 6 IUs, 4 to 6 IUs for 6 months doesn't have any detrimental side effects. But one caveat, most of those studies were done on those who are infected with HIV. So, not the same population. You can't always draw a parallel. Those studies that used otherwise healthy individuals, or those not infected with HIV, 1.8 to 2 IUs for up to 6 months didn't show any side effects either.
Wow.
So just to sort of help guys and girls who are doing this stuff to hopefully stay out of trouble.
Very, very helpful. Thank you, Doc.
I was going to add one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I'm just thinking part of the problem with GH belly is, and I don't see it with guys I know are taking it as badly or if at all, if they're keeping their carbohydrate intake low, especially the starchy carbs, the high glycemic index, simple carbs, because obviously that's going to have more of an effect, certainly with insulin, but also with IGF-1 floating around. So, because a lot of guys, I'm thinking of one bodybuilder who's now retired, who told me he never saw a GH belly because he only used GH when he was dieting down for the contest.
So carbs were in check.
I think that's important too. Yeah, you're right. That's part of the equation. Keep the carbs in check.
There you go.